青色的吗？ So, good morning to everyone. 我讲的中文非常非常小，但是可以告诉你们，如果讲的不大好或者缺点的缺什么重要的地方，请多多指教，多多包涵。I have started to discuss holistic approach of thinking with Professor Zhejiang some 2 years ago, and because I read about him, we get the number 19 in Thinkers 50. So, and he's famous for H, holistic thinking. So I told him for the last 20 years or more, I presented the first conference paper in Sydney on holistic thinking. And at the time I was a practitioner, so when they invited me to write a book, I said, no, thank you, because I have no time. So I regretted that, so I said, so now we can write something together. So there are actually 4 gaps which I have identified over the last 20 years, because I also supervise PhD students, but more in Indonesia, because Indonesia is an entrepreneurial society. So they welcome this type of research, whereas Singapore is a more controlled society. So a lot of information are confidential, and I think he also knows that the top 5 are all government related, so I cannot get such data. Therefore, in actual fact, most of my research is done with the SMEs as well as the conglomerates, which I was working 8 years with the second largest in Indonesia, which is known as the Cinemas Group. So I collected this data over time. So let's look at the 10 gaps. Actually, it's not only just 4. The first one is strategy gap. Why is there such a strategy gap? So 18% of the people say so. Execution is 16%, because they say we want to do, but our people are not doing it. So we want to know the reason why. Growth is, this is what happened to the Indonesian company. They tried to grow and they borrow $14 billion, cannot return. So therefore, when I was in McKinsey, instead of sending me to China, my boss redirected me to Indonesia. He said, it's closer to home. And of course, I was there for 8 years. And understand what is called growth. And the last one is learning. So I myself was under Professor Gordon Wills, which was the first marketing professor in the UK, and then now he retires back to Scotland, and he told me one thing, it's all about action learning. But when I wrote my postdoctorate thesis, it's about accelerated action learning. So how can we accelerate in today's digital economy? But there are other gaps, which is communications, expectations, performance, culture, knowledge. Generations gap is also very, very important. So let us look at the first slide. What causes the strategy gap? We all think that it will not happen, but actually it's happening. Why? The man at the top says that these are my strategic objectives. I think the business unit people will understand what I mean, and then the operations people say we are very confused. So this is the research that is confirmed by MIT, that workforce who understand their firm strategy, 5%. Executive team who spend more than 1 hour per month discussing strategy, 15%. Organizations who link budgets to strategy, of course we need to get the approval from the top management, 40%. However, leaders are good in both crafting and implementing strategy, 8%. And the middle managers complain that they only look at some of those strategies, and if they know how to implement, only 18% of those people. And worse still, percentage of people who articulate the company strategy, 5%. So with that, this is the main reason that the corporate plan actually does not, as yesterday I think the speaker Professor Zheng Wei also said, Zheng Jing, sorry, also said that from the top to the bottom, and then bottom goes back to the top. So this is very important because Japanese is bottom to top, Western society top to bottom. So therefore, this must be together, and there must be tools and techniques. So in today's digitization, you can go through your Internet of Things. Now, the next one is the execution gap. Why is that such a thing? So Norton and Kaplan, from their first book, Balanced Scorecard, they already mentioned 90% of strategies fail during implementation. McKinsey, later years, 70% fail. The Economist, 61% fail, and this is up to the new millennium. And then my good friend Bridges, who actually taught at IMD, the Duke, as well as SMU, 67%, that's the latest research has done. And this is also end up with publishing the book called The World's Best Bank, which is now one of the most popular selling book in Singapore. And the World's Best Bank is a very small bank in the world called DBS Bank. Right. So with that in mind, it is very obvious that most of the top management, the portfolio is the share price. Then they say that I have programs in which part of the world. So they say the world is divided into three parts. We have USA, Europe, and Asia. Then they come to project level. They say, where are the money? They say, oh, the money is, I use one example of General Electric. Majority is in China because they produce the engine, aircraft engine for Boeing series as well as the Airbus. So therefore, when it comes to Japan, is of less than 20% of the total budget. Come to Singapore, very small budget because it's for spare parts that is near the airport that they're producing. But when you ask Jack Welch, when he was still the CEO and chairman, how many times you've been to Singapore, he has to think very hard. He said, on transit. So that is how important GE to Jack Welch. That is not because of he doesn't care, because the investment in Singapore is too little for him to come here. However, if you ask him how many times he visited China, he said at least once every year, if not 4 times, because we have to meet the key people. So this is very important. When the top management don't go down to the operations level, they cannot actually understand at the ground level what is happening. Now, when you cannot grow, of course, people will ask, my projects are on scope, on schedule, and on cost. So technically, we have done everything to prove that it's viable. But how come our return on investment is not there? How come the internal rate of return is not there? How come we spend more money than the benefits? Then people ask, what is benefits? They say, benefits are 2 types, tangible and intangible. Just like when the British people came to Singapore and give a lot of scholarships, then you ask why? Because they want you to go to England, to the United Kingdom, and you study, you finish, you say, the best product comes from the United Kingdom. Then the Germans did the same. So they give a lot of scholarships to the Indonesian, and there's one Minister of Technology, Dr. Habibie, who says that German products are the best in the world because they are given a chance to go to Germany. So this is the old approach. But however, in today's term, every organization is responsible for revenue growth. Everyone, not just the people at the top layer. But if let's say I am a worker, I say I only work from 9 to 5, I don't care, but the COVID actually taught everyone a good lesson. You better care, because otherwise many companies go bankrupt, because the whole workforce has shrunk. The business is gone. So profitability, and we all also learn cash flow is everything, so liquidity. Now, this is something that we all forgotten, and this is my experience with this company for 8 years, that when they are a small company, the bosses are very close to the people, and they say that we need to engage better managers. We pay money to get good managers to work for us, but they don't have the leadership because why? They cannot influence the people. They don't have the concept that how to develop, how to nurture my people. They don't have successors. So you look at all the small companies, when they grow too fast, they actually, the successor is the children or their relatives. But is that the correct solution? However, when it comes to those days, was entrepreneurship was okay because they drive the business. However, when the company start to expand into plant, then what happens? They will spend more time talking to the managers. They spend less time to build the managers. They leave it to the second layer to build the successor. But they still can control the company because they are directly involved. However, when they go to manage, that means I'm using this Indonesian company, they come to Suzhou. You go to Suzhou, they have the largest pulp and paper factory. You go to Africa, they have invested 2.5 billion in the palm oil industry, so on and so forth. So do you think the owners has time to build entrepreneurship, to groom people? The answer, no. Leave it to Casey Chan. So Casey, please, I give you 80 people, you groom them for me. What do I tell him? Out of your 80, only 3 useful. What do you want me to do with the rest? They said, groom them some more. So groom them. Of course, not everyone is as good as the big bosses. So to cut the whole story short, when you go into integrated, so they invested money on technology, SAP system, the biggest in the whole of Southeast Asia. They have 200 people, IT related. But is this the solution? They have GPS system in the plantation, the most updated one, but who manage it? So therefore, technology needs people. First is groom the people. First is develop the people. So that is why this concept of capability, maturity is used in project management that makes sure who can manage the type 1 project, which is what Clayton Christensen said, efficiency projects. Type 2, sustainable projects. Type 3, transformation projects. So when they can understand that is, after 8 years I was there, I said, it's time for me to go because otherwise the people always come back to my desk and say, what's next? Then it defeats the whole purpose of developing your successors. So therefore, the concept is that all industry, big or small, must start to look at the pipeline of competent managers, means that use the right and the left brain. That means not only good in systems thinking, but holistic thinking, and when you make decisions, it's critical thinking. Proficient leaders, leaders who are willing to give way to their successors. That means I'm not selfish. I'm good by develop people better than me. Then this is called progressive society. If I'm good, I develop people who are 90% as good as me, it's called degeneration. So always, when I teach on the MBA, I always remind the students, do not be selfish. Share everything because you learn more. No? And the last one is not any technopreneurs. You must be agile. And agile is a mindset. So a lot of people misunderstood. We can use technology to replace. The answer, yes, but in order to use the technology, the first step is that you must look at the principles, the guidelines, and the promises. Then you can now start to move. So what we want at the end of the journey, from ad hoc to optimize, some organizations, including General Electric, took 20 years. That's where Jack Welch stepped down. Some took 15 years, like Apple when Steve Jobs was there. Some took 10 years because their people are younger, they are more responsive to the needs of the company. So this is my second last slide. So what is called a coherent strategy? It is very important that there are 4 coherent strategies. So if we have too many strategies, we get confused. And importantly is that we must know what are the winning order factors, and for project objectives, we must make sure that these tie in with the business objectives and the strategic objectives, and the business result is only obtainable when the company reaches maturity level, which we call high performance culture. Now, this is a standard balance scorecard, but what is the difference is that this scorecard must lead to the learning gap. That means what I learned in the past is that when I say I learned something, but do you learn anything? Huh? So I give one example. If I ask the first question, what must I know after I finish my talk? The answer should be, there are 4 gaps. There is, what did we learn? The second and the third question is, should know, why do we need to learn about the 4 gaps? Because we cannot reach the optimized result unless we seal up the 4 gaps. And how to implement the 4 gaps is using 6 A's, which is from awareness to alignment to action to adoption to assurance, and along the way, anticipation of risk. The last one will be who can implement, of course, all the 3 layers, from the top management to the middle to the junior management must work in tandem together. And when can we complete this high performance culture? Of course, you have to ascertain right from the beginning what and how much you want to expand the company. Are you overly ambitious or are you just ambitious? And finally, where are the pain points? Where are the risks? So when you are able to answer all these 5 questions leading to the last one, which is anticipation of continuous improvement, then we are really doing something. So to end this presentation, the 4 coherent strategies used to be 3. This was from Weisserman, which is Operation Excellence for Best Cost. That's everybody attempt to do, which was Toyota. Product leadership, Toyota says that, well, we can build the Lexus so that we can compete with the Mercedes-Benz and the BMW, so we get best performance, the car engine performance. Stakeholder experience, SIA. I buy the same aircraft as everybody, but I serve you better. You feel very comfortable when you sit in the SIA. I charge you even more. So therefore, total solutions, total customer solutions. However, the Blue Ocean strategy, Kim Chan and Rini says that there's something you missed, value for money. Value for money means that cost can come down and value can go up, so which then is aligned to Clayton Christensen of disruptive innovation, which says that how can I transform complex and expensive products into simple and affordable ones? That's what the Korean has done to compete with the Japanese cars industry. So prioritized projects will lead us to box 1. This is from the books of Vijay Vidyanarajan from Tufts School of Management. He says that we have to manage the present, and this is up to 3 years. Manage too long, we lose our direction. So box 2, 6 years, that is where you see the trend. Like now, everybody talking about the tablet for our, which will replace the mini computers. So selective drop some of the projects. And finally, create the future means that I must reserve the money for R&D so that it brings my company, I think yesterday Professor Chen Jin mentioned, to the next level called original innovation, which China is really talking about it. Huh? So organizational development means that plan change. People before technology. So a lot of people go into technology, they don't ask the people, why you don't use it? Boss, I was not trained. Why are you not trained? Because you say too expensive, because you say no time. Huh? So individual competence is good, but you don't want to be Superman. You want to be super team, which leads to team capacity. That's where people talk about agile project management, empower the team. Now you go into organizational capability, which is the 5 stages from ad hoc all the way to optimize. And finally, transition change management is very important from one to the other, and don't make assumptions that this will be done this has been done with making sure the people has the ability to execute, the discipline in execution, and then give them the technology for speed in execution. So my conclusion is this last slide. If we do not change the way we think, nothing can happen. So a lot of people jump into the work first. Let's get this thing done. Yes, but if we change the way we think, so the first step is use holistic thinking, which is putting the pieces together. The next one is just like all the top academics in this room say, I have a model, I put together, let's follow that model. Holistic thinking. System thinking is control. Where are the KPIs? Do not execute unless we know what to monitor and control. Critical thinking. I have so many alternatives. Which one will give me the best for the current situation? A, B, C, D. Some critical thinking are sequential. If I don't choose C, A and B will not happen. Now, why people refuse to support us? Example. Because we don't ask them and give them a chance to talk. So, Everett de Bono talked about 6 thinking hats. Even in your artificial intelligence, you start with internet AI, you go into business AI, and this is the third one, which is your perspective AI. That means there are people who are accountants, will ask for facts and figures. There are people who are passionate, they say, just do it like Nike. There are people who say that, wait a minute, did we look into the risk? So these are the pessimist people. Then there are people who are the sales and marketing opportunistic. Don't wait too long, but this is how we can see the growth, market-driven, stakeholder-driven, and then process-driven. And we also have people who are very innovative. That means we come up with 3 or 4 products, let the customer decide which is better for them. And also we have to look at the overview. That means overall picture, how can we develop, I think this is again explained yesterday, not just from one angle, which is called incremental innovation or leapfrog innovation, but original innovation. So when can we start to embark on this? The common language is a thread to pull everything together like a supply chain. In supply chain, it's called a chain. So my proposal is project management, which is now everybody is talking about it. And China, in fact, has the most number of certified project managers after USA, of course. Agile mindset, talk about principles, guidelines, and promises. Of course, finally, the KPIs with every organization is the same. This was a research done many, many years ago in 1994. In actual fact, the second president of SMU, he is the one who talked about the Sand-cone model, which is the Avis, and faster is speed, and reliability in delivery promise. Better, of course, is quality. But one thing we've forgotten, smarter is must have cost and flexibility. When you have all this, but not to forget that management, leadership, and technopreneurship, all these are processes. Therefore, we can develop people using those processes instead of arguing about leader, manager, and entrepreneur. Those are the ones that is born. I use the words of Lee Kuan Yew, cannot change. Born is born. Can change because you improve their leadership, you improve their technopreneurship, etc. So with that, I think I will have the axiom to say that we cannot change the world. USA is USA, China is China, Singapore is Singapore, but we can change how people think first. If we think cohesively, we think we want to collaborate, it will start. Work, let's start working together, not just you are you, I am I, so we start to hold hands and like supply chain, move at the same speed. I'm talking about entrepreneur, not geopolitics. And behave means that learning has taken place because I transformed from an old behavior to a new, improved behavior. And now we can perform, called the performance culture. So I thank you for your time. If I missed anything, please, I need your support and guidance and criticism, because I'm a practice professor. I'm away from the university for a long time because of the nature of my work. So thank you.